The Forest of Whispering Spirits. Evening had fallen upon the world. Only 3 friends, Maxim, Sofia, and Danylo, were reckless enough to enter the Forest of Whispering Spirits. Locals avoided it at all costs, telling tales of strange shadows moving between the trees and lost souls whose whispers echoed in the mist. It was that very whisper that led them here. Danylo, obsessed with mysticism, convinced his friends that in the heart of the forest lay an ancient artifact granting unimaginable power. They believed him, but with each step deeper into the woods, their confidence began to fade. The sun disappeared. A dead silence surrounded them, broken only by the rustle of leaves, though it didn't sound like rustling, but like muffled, sinister whispering. Suddenly, Maxim, walking ahead, stopped. "Do you hear that?" he whispered. No, they heard nothing. Yet, the moment he spoke, he vanished. Not simply walked away, he dissolved into thin air. His flashlight lay glowing on the ground, but he was nowhere to be found. Sofia and Danylo froze in terror but quickly pulled themselves together. "We have to find him," Sofia cried, her voice tearing through the darkness. They pushed forward, but the forest fought back. Each step became a trial. The trees seemed to shift places, forming new, never-before-seen paths, only to rearrange themselves again. When they tried to gather branches for a fire, the wood caught flame on its own, releasing a strange, revolting stench. Suddenly, they heard crying echoing from the depths of the forest. It was Maxim's voice. They ran toward it, but the closer they tried to get, the farther away it sounded. The forest toyed with them, forcing them to chase nothing. At last, when they stopped, their eyes fell on something horrifying. Maxim's backpack hung from a tree, and beneath it, his phone lay on the ground. The camera was still recording. Sofia picked it up, and what she saw froze her heart. The video showed Maxim running, desperately trying to escape someone. Then he stopped abruptly. Behind him, in the shadows, a figure appeared. It looked human, but its movements were unnatural, inhuman, and its eyes glowed with a sinister light. "Maxim," Sofia whispered, only to realize, in horror, that the voice didn't belong solely to her, but also to the creature in the video. Her terror grew when she saw the figure stretch out a hand toward Maxim. Its claws elongated like tentacles, engulfing him and leaving nothing behind but his belongings. Sofia and Danylo now understood their friend hadn't merely gotten lost. He had been taken, and they were next in line. Dropping everything, they ran, but the whisper grew louder, and the shadows crept closer. The forest wasn't going to let them go. Behind them, something massive and terrifying chased, driving them to run faster and faster, without ever daring to look back. The forgotten house. Exhausted from running, Sofia and Danylo suddenly saw a light ahead. They rushed toward it and came upon a small clearing where an old, decrepit house stood, as if woven from cobwebs and moss. The light that had lured them turned out to be nothing more than the moon's reflection in a grimy window. It seemed like the only refuge from the dreadful forest. They burst inside, but didn't have time to shut the door. It closed on its own with a loud creak, plunging the interior into complete darkness. Danylo switched on his flashlight, and its beam revealed a room covered in a thick layer of dust. They thought they could hear whispering, but this time it wasn't outside, it was coming from within. The wall seemed to breathe. Suddenly, something darted across the floor. Danylo pointed the flashlight at it, and they saw hundreds of large, hairy spiders crawling out of the dark corners. They swarmed up the walls and began descending on them. Sofia and Danylo screamed, trying to fight them off, but the spiders kept advancing, like soldiers charging into battle. Her terror grew when she saw the figure stretch out a hand toward Maxim. Its claws elongated like tentacles, engulfing him and leaving nothing behind but his belongings. Then, as abruptly as they had come, the spiders vanished. In their place, something worse emerged. Strange plants began sprouting from the corners of the room. They resembled carnivorous plants, but their jaws looked like human mouths filled with sharp teeth. They crept closer as if alive. The friends backed up toward the door, but it seemed locked forever. Suddenly, one of the plants snatched Sofia. She screamed as Danylo, in desperation, tried to fight back. Pulling out the knife he always carried, he hacked at them, one after another, but they seemed endless. In that moment, he noticed a strange symbol on the wall, the very same one they had seen carved into the trees. Dropping the knife, he touched it without hesitation. The symbol glowed brightly, then vanished. With it, the plants and spiders disappeared, and the door swung open. Breathless, Sofia and Danylo fled the house. They realized the building had never been a sanctuary but a trap meant to distract them from something far more terrifying. They kept running, without stopping or looking back, clinging to the hope they might still find a way out. But once again, the whispers began to close in. The Cave of Bloody Shadows. Exhausted but determined, Sofia and Danylo sprinted out of the cursed house. The forest around them seemed even more sinister than before. The air grew thick, heavy with the stench of damp earth and rotting leaves. They ran blindly, unsure of where they were going, until they suddenly saw the entrance to a cave. It was their only chance of escape from the forest that seemed to breathe down their necks. They rushed inside, hoping for safety. But they were wrong. As their eyes adjusted to the darkness, they saw human bones hanging from the cave walls. Some were bound together, forming grotesque, twisted shapes. From every corner came an eerie sound, like scraping metal. Danylo shone his flashlight toward the noise and saw someone standing in the center of the cave. He looked human, dressed in ragged, filthy clothes, clutching a knife in his hand. "Welcome," he rasped, his voice like metal grating on glass. Sofia and Danylo realized they had walked into a trap. Before them were not mere killers, but those who dwelled in the forest, those who had likely taken Maxim. They tried to back away, but the cave entrance slammed shut behind them, just like the house's door. More figures emerged from the shadows, their scarred faces twisted, their eyes glowing with a sinister light. One of them, resembling a guide, let out a laugh, a sound so dreadful it froze their blood. "You came here willingly. Now you belong to us." Sofia and Danylo understood there would be no escape. They had to fight, or die. Danylo grabbed a rock from the ground and hurled it at one of the killers. The man staggered back, but the others closed in. Sofia, remembering the piles of bones, snatched one and wielded it like a weapon. They rushed inside, hoping for safety. But they were wrong. As their eyes adjusted to the darkness, they saw human bones hanging from the cave walls. Some were bound together, forming grotesque, twisted shapes. From every corner came an eerie sound, like scraping metal. Danylo shone his flashlight toward the noise and saw someone standing in the center of the cave. He looked human, dressed in ragged, filthy clothes, clutching a knife in his hand. They rushed inside, hoping for safety. But they were wrong. As their eyes adjusted to the darkness, they saw human bones hanging from the cave walls. Some were bound together, forming grotesque, twisted shapes. From every corner came an eerie sound, like scraping metal. Danylo shone his flashlight toward the noise and saw someone standing in the center of the cave. He looked human, dressed in ragged, filthy clothes, clutching a knife in his hand. They rushed inside, hoping for safety. But they were wrong. As their eyes adjusted to the darkness, they saw human bones hanging from the cave walls. Some were bound together, forming grotesque, twisted shapes. From every corner came an eerie sound, like scraping metal. Danylo shone his flashlight toward the noise and saw someone standing in the center of the cave. He looked human, dressed in ragged, filthy clothes, clutching a knife in his hand. They fought like lions. They struck down one after another, yet more kept coming. Their faces were twisted with fury, their eyes burning with bloodlust. Exhausted, Sofia and Danylo knew they couldn't hold out much longer. Suddenly, a strange sound echoed through the cave. It was like a rumble, but also a whisper. The walls began to shake, and the same symbols they had seen on the trees and inside the house appeared once more. They glowed brightly, then exploded. The killers screamed, their cries turning into haunting wails, before vanishing into nothing. Stunned, Sofia and Danylo looked around. What had just happened? What had saved them? The symbols on the walls were gone, vanished along with the killers. And in the blink of an eye, they found themselves no longer in the cave, but back in the dense, suffocating forest. The forester's cabin. Barely breathing, Sofia and Danylo ran, no longer aware of the path beneath their feet. They were certain they could go no further when suddenly, in the distance, they saw a faint light. It flickered invitingly, and hope stirred within them. They rushed toward it and found an abandoned forester's cabin. From its windows, light seemed to shine, as though someone was waiting for them. They burst inside, only to find the cabin shrouded in darkness. The light they had seen was nothing more than a lantern left behind in haste. Once again, they realized someone, or something, was toying with them. The moment they stepped in, the door slammed shut on its own. The forester's cabin. Barely breathing, Sofia and Danylo ran, no longer aware of the path beneath their feet. They were certain they could go no further when suddenly, in the distance, they saw a faint light. It flickered invitingly, and hope stirred within them. They rushed toward it and found an abandoned forester's cabin. From its windows, light seemed to shine, as though someone was waiting for them. From the cellar crawled a horrifying figure. It looked almost human, but its face was grotesquely distorted, and where its eyes should have been were two black voids. Dressed in a filthy, tattered uniform, it clutched a blood-stained chainsaw. It was the bloody forester. He let out a ghastly laugh. "The time has come," he rasped. Sofia and Danylo screamed and rushed for the door, but it was locked. The bloody forester, grinning, began to hunt them through the cabin. They ran in circles, desperate for an exit, but he was everywhere, appearing behind furniture, emerging from the walls, as though he was part of the house itself. He moved with the speed of a beast. His chainsaw roared like a ravenous predator as he closed in. They knew this could be their end. But just as he was upon them, the same glowing symbols appeared on the cabin walls, the ones they had seen on the trees and inside the cave. They shone brightly, then exploded in a blinding flash. The bloody forester screamed, then dissolved into thin air like a phantom. Exhausted, Sofia and Danylo collapsed onto the floor. They now understood this place was not merely cursed. It was alive, and it had no intention of letting them go.